Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll know how important I think the crow to handstand is as a movement by itself, but also amazing movement if you're working towards things like handstand push-ups. And in my crow to handstand tutorials, I go through lots of different variations of options when it comes to learning the movement, whether that's using the wall, back to wall, chest to wall, coming down with one leg or two legs, like so. But the downside, the issue with learning the movement is there's quite a prerequisite or a sticking point about getting the knees off the elbows. But yesterday I discovered a new transition that I think is going to be very, very useful for people that feel that they can't get any weight to come out of the knees to get that point here like this. And I actually tried this technique with my handstand class last night, and 99% of them could do this transition. So previously, I had people start on the wall like this, and then try and get to their elbows, or start on their elbows and try and get to the wall. But what I found is a much easier variation is in the setup. So you set up where you have some weight in the knees or on the elbows from the knees, but you also set up so you have some weight in the wall as well. So I'm sharing the load between the knees on the elbows and the feet on the wall. So you might need to play around with that setup a little bit, but we want to get to the point so your balls of your feet are on the wall and your knees are on your elbows, either on the outside like that or more on the top. And then all we're going to do is try pushing into the wall and coming back. Pushing into the wall, coming back. And that takes away the demand of stepping to the elbow like so, because for the transition, you've actually got contact with everything. So contact with the elbows, contact with the wall, and then I can go to there, look, and I can walk up, and I can walk back down. But when I come back down, I try and get that same position, and the knees touch when the feet are also touching. And it seems to really work. Now, we still need some prerequisites here. We can't just go straight into that position. We need to have a frog or a crow position like so, and we need to be able to move the feet around, and ideally, we need to be able to do this. So take the head and shoulders down as the hips and feet come up, and vice versa. And then we also need to have the ability to walk up the wall and come back down with control, and for that to be relatively easy so you can hold a conversation. If you can do those two things, you can definitely start stringing the movement together and transitioning from the froggy crow position, feet on the wall, to the wall, and back down to try and get there. And then over time, we can start to go to those next levels where we lift off the froggy crow position to the wall, and then we can start to float back down. But now the gap can be a little bit smaller. Now, if your goal is to get to the point where you can do this and go up to a handstand, whether that's wall touching or freestanding, then I highly recommend you're working your handstand balance. So working those back to wall, chest to wall drills. So back to wall, the heel pull, pulling off for reps. Once you can do reps comfortably without kicking off the wall, then doing holds. Returning back to the wall after each hold. Then for the underbalance, doing the opposite, the toe pulls, using those shoulders to take the hips with you till the toes become light, push up and back. Again, for repetitions, once we can do the reps, and then we do the holds in that slightly underbalanced position, be able to go between the two and go back to the wall. That's going to take some time, but trust me, you can never do too many handstand balance drills, because the handstand balance is going to be the base, the foundation. It's going to give you the ability to go between different movements. It's going to allow you to do handstand push-ups, so allow you to do press handstand or any other handstand related skill. I'd also recommend that you're constantly working on that mobility and those bent arm strengthening exercises like the pike push-ups, even to the point where you can get the hip crease on top of the heel of the palm. So then at the bottom of the movement, you can float. And then you could even go to there. And then you could even push up to there and reverse it back down with control. Now that takes a long time to get, but if you start working on that bent arm, strength, that mobility, those crow to handstand variations, you can start having some real fun when you combine that with the balance work. Now, because this is a newer progression that I haven't really seen before, and I haven't tried with that many people, just that handstand class last night. I'd really love your feedback. So if you could have a play with that, let me know down in the comments how you get on. And if you're after help with your training, you want more structured routines, I have my press handstand, my handstand balance, and my handstand push-up courses. Links are all down below. Now, if you get this technique right, it's going to help your handstand push-ups massively. It's going to allow you to get more repetitions when you do them freestanding, or it's going to help you unlock your first repetition. Now, the idea is that we need to fall into the wall as we come up, but we don't want to do it so much where we're doing it like a banana handstand and then falling into the wall here, because you get stuck, because I'm like dragging myself up and all my weight is over my fingers all the time, which makes me feel really heavy when I come up and down. Instead, I want to make it more like the crow to handstand, where I go up and over like so. So my weight stays or starts back here, and then as I come up, it goes over towards handstand. And if we use the back to wall technique like this, single leg, so I kick up, bend one leg, come down with this leg, the straight leg, to touch, and then when I come back, my weight goes over again. It teaches that underbalance, overbalance really nicely. Now to set it up, I would come 3 hand spaces, or roughly 3 hand spaces away from the wall. This gives you enough space to place your head down between the wall and your hands to create that all-important triangle. I'd externally rotate the hands. So in this position, kick up, one leg touching, one leg off. Now the idea of this straight leg is that it's in line with the torso when I'm in this angle, but also as the head comes forwards, see how it stays in line? Elbows on top of hands till the forehead just kisses, and then I come down. So that's the eccentric. That's going to teach us the down movement. And the balance needs to be just right, where I've still got all the weight on the hands. I've brought weight backwards, but not too much so I come down fast. And I should feel like my tiptoe is just lightly touching the wall, not with too much weight. And then when we touch on the change of direction, we take the weight over forwards as I push. So it will look like this. Here, down to this point, light toe on the wall, then back into the wall. So I'm down like this and then up and over into the wall. And as you get more and more confident with it, you can do more repetitions that are lighter on the wall but still use that same technique. And I can even go to the point where instead of doing it like that, I start to do it like this. So see there, I'm releasing the wall a little bit. I'm still going up and over to it, but I don't rely on that foot touching the wall. And that's going to carry over to the freestanding version more and more. And then you can eventually go to the point where you don't use the bent leg, you use the same technique, but then you go back towards the wall at the top, until eventually you can do the same thing, but you start freestanding and you finish freestanding, and the wall's there only if you need it. I actually only used to use the chest to wall variation to teach the handstand push-up, because so many people would fall into the wall and banana themselves into bad technique using the back to wall version. But with this single leg option, I find that it really teaches that gap between the wall handstand push-ups and the freestanding handstand push-ups, and also teaches that efficiency of using the underbalance, overbalance to get more reps or get your first rep. Now, if you'd like more help with your handstand push-up training, check out my course. You can take a picture of this QR code, or I have links down below. It will give you everything you need to get from a pike push-up all the way to a deficit handstand push-up and even to a 90-degree handstand push-up. Now, when it comes to handstand push-ups, most people's first repetitions are going to look like this, and then we're going to move to this. One of the biggest mistakes you can make is trying to make it like this first before you get this unlocked. Today, I'm going to tell you why you need to train this first, and then how do you go from that to this. Oh, and if you want to just skip all this and get the course straight away, it's got all the programs, the tutorial videos, and everything you need to go from a pike push-up to a deficit freestanding handstand push-up, actually a 90-degree handstand push-up. You'll find links to my course down below. It's currently got 50% off. Now, if we break down the handstand push-up, it covers 3 main areas: balance, strength, and skill. And when you're training towards it or just trying to fill gaps, you're probably lacking in some of those areas. And for our training reps, we need to make sure that we have room for error in all the drills and skills that we're doing. So if we look at the start position, the handstand, this position. Now, I'm holding a relatively straight, good line handstand. Now, most people are going to try and achieve this or have this as their starting position for their handstand push-up. The downside of this position is it's a bit like a Ferrari. It looks very pretty, but it's very fragile. Meaning for most people, that is going to be a very narrow window of balance. It's like standing with this type of posture like this on the edge of a cliff. If there's a little bit of wind or someone pushes you, you're falling. But instead, if I stood on the end of that cliff like this, I now have the ability to move around in that position and not fall over. This is a great example as well. Can you see this fly flying around my head and really annoying me? If I'm in this position and I try and swat that fly, I'm going to fall. But if I'm like this, I can get the fly or try and get the fly. I'm not going to get it, but I'm not going to fall over. I just got the fly. So when I kick up to my handstand, if I make it a little bit more bananaed, a little bit more easier to hold, a little bit more easier to catch, and look at this movement I can do now. I can play around in this position. And remember, this isn't just the start of the handstand push-up. I'll go down to do a handstand push-up and then come back up. This is the finish and the catch of the handstand push-up as well. So I don't want to be trying to get back to that dead arrow position when I'm tired and trying to make my way back up. I need something that has some room for error and I can move around on it. So picture your window of balance in having underbalance and overbalance. How much can I go in this direction, my overbalance, before I fall? How much can I go in this direction? And then how much can I go in the underbalance, the opposite direction? See, I'm bending the knees now and leaning backwards. Exactly the same here. I can go towards that overbalance, and then I can go towards the underbalance over here. If I have this type of capacity to move forwards and backwards, I have a big window of balance or big room for error. And that's at the top, the start of the handstand push-up, and at the top, the end of the handstand push-up. Now we need to use that same concept when it comes to the wall drills, but the thing we need to be careful of with the wall drills is we don't want to make the position too relaxed. We can do that freestanding, because if we make it too relaxed, we're actually going to fall out of the handstand. When we're doing it against the wall, we've got to be careful that our relaxed or our not so good training position collapses into the wall. So if I take something like a chest to wall, let's turn the hat. Chest to wall handstand push up. My start position wants to be like this. See, I'm hollowed into the wall. It doesn't want to be like this. This is going to make it really hard. This is going to make it much easier to do the movement. So it's a little bit different when we scale it back to wall progressions. We've got to be careful that we don't collapse too much. But that's another good reason why we want to start to get away from the wall as soon as possible so we can use the freestanding techniques that are going to carry over to our end goal, which is the freestanding handstand push-up. So be careful with the chest to wall one. With the back to wall drills, it's not so bad. It can actually help us a little bit. So I can be a little bit bananaed in this top position here. When I come down, I want to bring this foot in this direction. So I'm using underbalance, and then at the top, I come back towards overbalance. So the back to wall drill can actually teach us the correct technique that's going to carry across to the freestanding. So a good way of thinking about it is the chest to wall one is going to have a nice, clean technique in more of a hollow position. The back to wall is going to teach us the underbalance, overbalance technique that I'm going to go through in a second. And then the freestanding is going to put all that together, the balance, the strength, and the skill. So I just mentioned the underbalance, overbalance to help us get the handstand push-up. So this is a concept that's very, very important to understand if you want to get your first rep of handstand push-up, but also multiple reps. So if you notice what happens now is I kick into handstand. As I come down, I'm actually going to go a little bit underbalance, meaning my weight is coming back more in this direction. Not that direction, that's overbalance, underbalance. So weight's going to go back a little bit more into the heel of my palm as I come back this way. Here. Now when I come back up, watch what happens. My feet go over, and I'm actually going towards overbalance. So I'm coming down like this and then up like this. This is going to help us come up. Same way we can run faster if we lean forwards. It's going to help us out, and if we push at the right time, it's going to help us up. The risk of being too dead straight is that when you try and use the underbalance and the overbalance, you either collapse way too much this way, or when you go back up, so you might go down, your position, because there's no room for error, just goes over to the overbalance. So having a little bit more of a relaxed position allowing the body to banana slightly, increases that room for error dynamically when you're doing the movement. So if I come down like this, even go a little bit like flexed, now watch what happens. Banana, push out. I can get a repetition. If I'd have tried to keep that one dead straight, or I'd have fallen this way, or I'd have fallen that way. So hopefully you now understand the benefits of having a little bit more of an uglier handstand position compared to a prettier handstand position. But how do we go from this to this? Because this is obviously the end result. And another cool thing with this one is that we can do pretty reps, but as soon as we get tired, as the reps go on, if we want to get that second, third, 10th rep, we can allow the body to turn ugly to get more repetitions. And then as you get more along with it, then as you get more conditioned, more stronger, better at the skill, your ugly reps will come later on. So initially they might come at rep number 4. When you're stronger, they might come at rep number 10. I'm around like 9 or 10, and then things start to get a little bit uglier. Then I can get another 4 or 5 with ugly technique, but they would still count in terms of touching the head to the floor and getting all the way back up. Now, as you're probably aware, the down phase, the eccentric, is easier than the concentric, than the up. I can go down from this position to this position very easily, but going back up uses more energy to get back to that position. So we can use that to our advantage when we're trying to make the ugly rep like the nice rep. So our main focus is catch the handstand first, now make it cleaner, now do a clean eccentric, an ugly concentric, catch the handstand, make it clean, come back down. Now I could do that back to wall. I could definitely do it chest to wall. And you've probably been already doing this anyway for your chest to wall reps. We have a clean eccentric. When we try and push back up, this happens. Then we go clean on the way back down. So we can do the same with the back to wall. I can go clean on the way down, even come off the wall, but then ugly, use the wall on the way back up. So eccentric, the down phase, the easier one, is for the clean technique. Ideally, when we get back up to the top, or when we're in the start position, we might catch with an uglier position, but then we make it clean. And then as soon as you feel ready, you might be able to get one repetition that's clean at the top, on the way down, on the way back up, but your next repetition might be clean on the way down, ugly on the way up. So you just ride it, and the cool thing is you can ride it day to day. So if you're having an off day in terms of balance and strength, you can make it a little bit uglier. And then the opposite, if you're having a great day, you can make them cleaner for longer. Now, if you're struggling with that concept of underbalance, overbalance, I highly recommend that you do lots of crow to handstand, this froggy position, because I'm already underbalanced now. I've got lots of weight in my feet. I need to go overbalance to help me out. See there, what happened is I rolled into it and went to overbalance. That really teaches the principle of underbalance to overbalance. And I go through that in my handstand course, links all down in the description. And we use exactly the same principles with the deficit handstand push-up. So we might have a cleaner rep on the way down to here, and then an uglier rep, still using that overbalance, to get back up to the top. And saying that, we can use that principle for majority of our calisthenics and bodyweight skills. Now, there's obviously a point of no return, or point that we shouldn't go past in terms of how ugly a repetition is. Normally with the balance work, you'll get spat out, meaning if you make it too ugly as you go down, you're going to fall towards underbalance or fall towards overbalance and not make the rep. So still follow that 5 rep rule. So you should be able to do 3 to 5 repetitions of good quality of the working drill that you're doing. If you can't do 3 to 5 good reps, the drill at the moment is too hard for you. You can play with it, explore it, and know it's what to come. But you should be doing the reps and sets of a drill you can do at least 3 repetitions or get quality time under tension. Or we can take it to an extreme as well. So let me show you a 90-degree handstand push-up. Now, I'm not super strong at 90-degree handstand push-ups. I can do them, but I do the principle of good technique on the way down, uglier technique on the way back up, depending on the day. So let's see what it's like today. So I'm going to come down with good technique to here, and then to get back up, I'm using overbalance to pull me out. There, so you can see I curled my body up over and then got into a cleaner handstand at the top. A little bit harder to hold conversation while I've done it, but that's a good example of using not so good technique on the way up, cleaner technique on the way down. So let me know down in the comments if you have any questions on this one. If you are interested in the handstand course, it's currently got 50% off. You can take a picture of this QR code or click the links below. Today, let's look at the different variations of the crow to handstand. And the crow to handstand is an amazing exercise if we're working towards handstand push-ups, press handstand, 90-degree handstand push-ups, or just want to have great control on our hands. Now what I was demoing there was seen as like the standard crow up to freestanding handstand. But you already need to have quite a bit of strength, control and balance to do that one. If you're not quite ready for that one, let's first look at the easier variations against the wall. Now I've got quite a few tutorials on crow to handstand, so I'm not going to break it apart like I would do on a full tutorial. Instead, I'm just going to show you some easier variations and then make them much harder. Now probably the easiest variation is to use momentum and back to wall. Now I say probably because it's going to vary depending on your individual strengths and weaknesses. But for most people, this one's going to be easier. So hips start low, shoulders start high, and then I'm going to take the shoulders down, hips up, find the wall, step. Ideally I'll go into freestanding. And remember with all of these, the down is going to be much easier than the up. So if you get stuck, train the pathway with the down, slow and controlled as possible. And then eventually you'll be able to do the up as well. But look, I'm using momentum. I'm purposely firing myself over towards the wall. So that would be seen as the easiest variation of the crow to handstand or the frog to handstand, depending on what you want to call it. Then we could do exactly the same, but just slow the movement down. So do exactly the same. Use a lot of strength here to push out, but I find the wall. So I'm not using as much balance all the way up. And again, ideally hold at the top and slowly come down with control to that start position. You can also play around with whether you go single leg or double leg. So double leg would be this, both legs at the same time. Single leg would be reaching up and over, finding the wall a little bit earlier. Now this one could be easier for some people. It's the chest to wall version. I'm going to step into the wall. So there, step into it, walk up, and then walk back down again. And then we have the variation that I showed in my video recently where I come very close to the wall. You put a little bit of weight in the wall, a little bit of weight in the knee, and then I walk up like so and then back down again. And then you can just play with, again, momentum and how much you touch the wall. So I could come a little bit further away from the wall, use the momentum like we did with the back to wall, so there, and then throw the legs up and go back into the wall. And then ideally stepping off at the top. Now on the way down, you might use the wall a little bit or not at all for the eccentric. Then we can basically repeat those variations, chest to wall and or back to wall, but aim to catch the freestanding hold and just use the wall as needed. So I do exactly the same thing, try and hold the handstand, but if I need to, I can go to the wall. Exactly the same, chest to wall, try and get it to hold in the top, but if you can't and need it, you can touch the wall and then try and do the same on the way back down. Then once we're ready, completely freestanding, exactly the same. Now we could go very slow into the movement, very slow on the way back down. Harder from a strength point of view, but in some ways easier from a catch in terms of the balance, because if I come up really fast, I need to catch at the top. If not, I might fire myself up in this direction or that direction. So I need to be quicker at catching the movement. Where if I come slower, I can read the balance and it gives me more time, but it does use more strength. So we have speed, we have the amount we seesaw. So here I'm seesawing a lot because my hips are backwards. I've got no weight in the hands and I haven't taken the head and shoulders down yet. Head and shoulders down, feet up, which is probably way easier because it's catapulting me to the overbalance that helps, but the risk there is that I keep going and fall out towards the overbalance. I can do those same variations, single leg, and then push up. I could stay in that like staggy position, which a lot of people find easier to balance because I'm pulling down with this top leg and then using the bottom leg hip flexor as well to control the position. And combined with the shoulders, that makes it very strong. Or I could straighten fully up to a standard handstand before coming down with single or double legs. We could play with elevating the movement, so we could use P-bars or steps. Again, going back to the wall if needed, and then I can use it all in the same way, all the same progressions. It's just now we're up in the air. In some ways that helps us go up. Raising the hands up tends to send the hips and feet more straight up as opposed to over. So a lot of handstand entries can actually feel easier once you get used to being up on the higher surface compared to the floor version. We can do it chest to wall, back to wall, and then we can do it freestanding. Now, if we are going to do it freestanding, you obviously need to make sure that you're happy to bail if things go towards that overbalance, because that can be a little bit scary if you're not used to that. But it's definitely worth practicing the bail, because sooner or later you're going to need it. Now we could get rid of the boxes and go to P-bars, and the P-bars can add some different variations in. So obviously all the same ones we just showed there, but we can start to play now with, instead of being like this, we can start to turn the bars this way. And that eventually can go all the way to having the bars like this. So I'm handstanding on a straight bar. So initially we need to get the standard one in the middle of the room, and then we just move them out a little bit. So I've turned them this way a little bit. Exactly the same position, up, show control at the top, where's the ceiling, there, come back down. If that feels okay, we start to move it around again. So at the moment we're at that type of position. Now this is obviously making things much harder from a balance point of view, but if you do want to be able to handstand on a straight bar, the crow to handstand is actually a very controlled way of entering the position. And then we can just keep moving closer and closer to the straight bar. And then once you had this, you could start to do it on higher and higher bars. You just need to be comfortable to exit whatever the height of the bar is. It allows me to go a little bit wider on that position. So, but let's get this one clean first. Hardest bit's getting into the crow position. Yeah, sort of. But you get the idea. You can keep going higher and higher. So that one's not going to be for everyone, but if your goal is to handstand on a single bar, which comes into play if you get deeper and deeper into bar calisthenics, the crow to handstand is a really good way to approach it. If you're working towards other things like press to handstand, see how high my hip is now, and I can straighten the arms, and it's more or less the press handstand movement. The crow to handstand is going to make things much easier to get the weight up and forwards, and if you are a little bit stronger, especially towards bent arm, it's a good way of entering the press handstand work, or at least building a strong foundation that you can use to rebalance as you go, and obviously it transfers over to the handstand push-up progressions really nicely. Check out this video if you'd like the full tutorial for crow to handstand. If you want the programs to take you from a pike push-up all the way to a 90-degree handstand push-up, check out my handstand push-up course. Links are all down below. Now if you're training towards deficit handstand push-ups, L-sit to handstand, or basically just handstand on the P-bars, we need to know how to enter and exit. Now that way you're going to stay nice and safe, but it also means that you can do all the drills. And a common question is, how do we learn to handstand on something like this? I would initially handstand on something like this, kicking up to the wall, making sure you're nice and comfortable here. Now notice I didn't touch the wall when I went up, and I'm using like an up and down type suspension movement with the arms. I'm doing this, and I'd highly recommend that you play with that and use that actually as your catch when you're doing it up on the high bars. So you'll see the same thing when I jump up on here. Look, I'm catching in this bent arm position, and it's like I'm moving up and down, but at no point am I extending fully like this, especially when I'm catching. That really tall position like this wants to be your end of your range when it comes to your balance, not the catch position. If you catch like this, a lot of the time you're going to feel like you're going to go over. So ideally you're going to have a lower set of P-bars that you're going to learn to balance on first, whether it's these ones or powerlets all the way down towards the floor. But if you've got these ones, you can still do it, but ideally you'd have a higher ceiling if you're going to use these ones, so you can straighten the body out a little bit more. Look, I can do it here on these, and use the wall to help me, but I'm restricted because of the ceiling height when I'm here. So it can be done, but you're better off having a higher clearance with these ones or using the lower P-bars if you have that option. And then we need to just get very comfortable with kicking up and going to this position and coming back down again. Think you're going on top of the base, you're not going to the wall. What we don't want to be doing here is kicking to the wall every time, because that's going to make it really hard to get away from the wall. And then once you're comfortable with that and you can kick up to this position, either going both feet, but one foot works really well and more like a staggy position, and then I'm going to pull myself off the wall and take myself back to the wall. So a bit like the heel pull drill when we're learning to handstand using the floor. I'm just doing a similar movement, but now I'm using a little bit more strength. I'm pulling myself around by bending the arms slightly and pulling the shoulders forwards and backwards. So I'm doing like this type of movement to control that handstand. As soon as that starts to feel comfortable, we start to do a bit bigger movement or a bit longer hold in that position before returning back to the wall. And I want to be able to do repetitions and holds there, like so. And what we're doing there is we're creating control, a bigger balance window, but also a catch position for when we enter the handstand on the higher bars. And then we can specifically target that little balance window or that catch position in a place where we have room for error. Now that means that if I can move in this direction for my handstand before I topple over, I don't want to jump and catch like I was just demonstrating outside on the edge of that window because I'm likely to go over. What I want to do is jump and catch inside of the window, meaning that if I do accidentally go a little bit over, I'm not going to fall. So I'll jump and catch here like this, and I've still got this much room to go to balance and get back again. And then you can just do repetitions close-ish to the wall of catching in that window. So I catch here, show control, push up tool, come back again. Wall's there if I need it. And then when I'm ready, I just do that same principle, but on the higher bars or in the middle of the room. See, I've caught and I haven't straightened all the way. And then I push out, still showing control, but I've got the ability to go back to that position if I need to. And I can go between those 2 points. And that makes it very safe, but also very consistent. So when I'm doing handstand push-up drills, so say I want to do a eccentric handstand push-up, I can jump or kick to that position, push out to the start of my handstand, and then I can do the repetition of the eccentric, down, show control, and come back out. We don't want to be wasting reps or time trying to catch, so making that position at the top very consistent and very usable is super important. And what you'll find is that catch position becomes very, very useful for lots of different movements. It even works for floor handstand push-ups. So if I'm doing a floor variation and I come down here and I come back up to here, if I can catch in this position, this is where I often get stuck. But if I've got good balance and control, and I've been here lots of times, I can pause, compose myself, and then push out. This is much easier to catch and control than this position because I'll tend to go over way more. And that could be in a press, handstand push-up, L-sit to handstand. So I'd be in that L-sit position, I come through here, and then look, here's that position again. Show control, compose myself, finish the movement. If I tried to finish at the top with straight arms, I'm more than likely to go over, or I wouldn't make it up in the first place. So if your goal is a handstand push-up, if your goal is to handstand on the higher P-bars, even on the canes, highly recommend you do lots of work to condition that top position. It doesn't have to be a separate exercise, it could just be how you enter the position to do your other drills. If you're interested in learning a full handstand push-up all the way up to a 90-degree handstand push-up, I have my online course, links are down in the description. Now what I like to do with my own training and clients training is when we get to a point where we actually have a skill, instead of doing reps and sets of that skill, if you do 10 or 5 or 20 repetitions for time, you can then just focus on the quality of the movement. You can get a little bit lost with just reps and sets. They're great for drills, it's great for strength work, so like a 5x5, is arguably the best way to train strength. It's very linear, it's very easy to handle when it comes to juggling the intensity. However, when you get to the actual skill of something, just putting it all together in terms of the strength, the balance, the mobility, and then the skill of the movement itself, It's harder to say the amount of repetitions and sets you should do because each individual rep might take up a little bit more energy. It might be less efficient, less quality movement, meaning that you have to put in more energy or more strength into the movement, and then you might have the reverse of that. Like this is a good example. I've done no warm-up and I'm doing 10 handstand push-ups, but the plan was to do 10 handstand push-ups in one go, get them done, and then I'm going to move on to 5 deficit handstand push-ups where I'll probably need to take a break, especially because I'm going to try and do this 10 handstand push-ups unbroken. But if you watch what happens, I actually get 9, fail on number 10, then have to have a little bit of a rest. If I had done a warm-up, I would have been able to easily or more comfortably get the 10 repetitions. But training this way isn't about getting the reps in a row necessarily. It's more about just getting 10 quality repetitions done, and then I'm going to move on to the next progression. Now you could just do like 20 reps and not focus on harder progressions, or you could do 5 or 10 repetitions and then move on to the drills to unlock the next progressions or the next skills. So if you don't have a deficit handstand push-up, but you have good handstand push-ups, you could do what I've done here, but instead of actually doing the deficit handstand push-ups as the following movement, you would just go into drills towards the deficit handstand push-up and use the standard handstand push-up as your repetitions. So now I've had a little bit of a rest after doing those standard handstand push-ups. I'm now going to have a go at the deficit. So because I've just done those 10 repetitions of the standard handstand push-ups, I'm not going to try and get these in a row. That would be really challenging. That's like my 1 rep max is to get 5 in a row. So I'm more likely to get 1 or 2 and then just break up the 5 as much as I need to, but try and keep good quality throughout the 5. So again, we're not looking at reps and sets, we're just looking at getting 10 or 5 done. So this will be 5 of the deficit. So starting in the top position, coming all the way down, touching, and then pushing back up. Yeah, I'm going to break them up because that feels quite challenging. I've also had a week away in Bali, so I'm a little bit dusty when it comes to training, but I really like to use this style of training with handstand push-ups, press handstand, and then handstand balance. And the way you do it with handstand balance, you just accumulate time. Instead of getting 10 reps done, you're just going to accumulate 60 seconds in a freestanding handstand. And if you're someone who's stronger, you could put some more restrictions around that. So you could say each individual hold has to be over, say, 20 seconds. So the maximum number of repetitions that you're going to count is 3. If you do one that's 15 seconds, that just doesn't count, and you have to get one over 20. Obviously, you need to have a good freestanding handstand balance to do that. Well, another way to do it is when you get to a level where you can hold for 90 seconds. So for myself, I know I can hold a 2-minute handstand. I should be able to get 60 seconds in one go, just like that. And if I don't, it's a fail, and I have to keep going until I get there. So let's get number 2 done. Yep, these are way harder than they should be. So this is quite different though to how I would train the skill when you don't have the skill. Because when you don't have the skill, you need to break it apart in its components. You need to be training the full range of motion. So normally eccentrics from the top of the movement all the way down to the bottom with control. Nice, slow, good tempo where you're showing quality, time under tension through that full range of motion combined with pike push-ups. So that way you're getting the up and the down in the pike push-up, but you're getting the actual skill movement in the eccentric through the full pathway. What's that, 2? You need to get another 3. Oh, ugly. But if you are doing this style of training where you have a set number of reps to do, unless it's very comfortable, I would put a time cap on it. So you could put a cap on of 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 10 minutes, depending on how many repetitions you're expecting and how much or how hard it is for you to get those. Like I know with the standard handstand push-ups, I can only get the 10 in a row in one go. So I wouldn't put a time cap on that because I just know I'll get the 10 done in a nice fashion. But when it comes to, if I'm doing 10 deficit handstand push-ups, I'd probably want to put like a 15-minute time cap on. And the other way of doing it, and this works really well if you have a limited time, is you just do as many repetitions of the thing. So I could go as many repetitions of deficit handstand push-ups in a set time. So like a CrossFit style workout, as many reps as possible, quality repetitions in a set 10 or 20 minutes. So going a little bit slower on those instead of making it sloppy and bananaing up, just a choice to get the rep done. Got one more to go. Now the 90-degree handstand push-up is a really cool movement and it can be attacked from different ways depending on your strength, your balance, your flexibility. And today let's have a play with it from the bottom up. So I'm going to really focus initially on the transition from the bent arm planche position through to the shoulder stand. I'm going to make it super easy to start with. And the cool thing is this is one of the easiest parts to the 90-degree handstand push-up. So even if you're not close to it yet, you don't have a standard handstand push-up, you can still work on this one and it's going to really help you towards your handstand control, both in the handstand push-up, the press, and the handstand balance itself. So the first we need is an elevated surface. You can use these boxes. You could use P-bars like this, a couple of benches, a couple of chairs, or a stack of weight plates. So lots of options there. We're just going to get the upper arm into our torso, like so. I'm going to take the head and shoulders down into this position. So see I'm rocked back slightly, so I'm a bit of an angle, like so. Just make sure when you're training it that you move really, really slowly in and out of the position. So if you're newer to it, just go really light, tiptoe first, and then just see if you can lift that foot. Don't be throwing the foot up as hard quickly as possible because you'll probably end up going over. Then we want more of the bent arm planche position. So exactly the same, good contact there. But now I'm going to lower the hip and be more like a tuck. So there, parallel with the floor with the torso, something like that. And ideally, see how I'm rocking in that position? We want to have the ability to do that. That also shows that we're centered in terms of being on top of the base of support. If you can only hang backwards or forwards, it just means that you're centered one way or the other towards overbalance or underbalance. So try and find that middle ground. Keep it easy, so keep it tightly tucked. Opening out, it looks more impressive, but it's going to use up a lot of energy. And at the moment, we need the energy for the skill work of transitioning between those two positions. So once you've got that shoulder stand type position in a tuck ball, then we're going to go from there to the bent arm planche that we just done. So between your two positions. So there, it might be toe down, and then you could come through to that position, or ideally toe up, so you're balancing, and then I'm just going to slowly come through to that position. If that feels easy, keep the head and shoulders forwards, and then see if you can get back. My cap's hitting. So let's fix that, but ideally you'll be able to transition between the two and hold a conversation while you're doing it. Really important. So there, I can hold a conversation, I can breathe normally, because if we know that we can do that, then we can add more progressions, more load, more intensity on top of it, because I can do repetitions, I can hold a conversation. It's not using up much energy. We don't want to be fighting ourselves in that position. If you are, you need to work a little bit more on your balance, your positioning. Make sure you video from the side so you can see what you're doing instead of what you think you're doing. Then let's go back to the static positions and start to open them out to harder progressions. So the shoulder stand, go into that tuck, find the balance, and then extend up. Now thinking when you extend up that you're not going vertically up, because if you go vertically up, your hips and your feet are going to go over on top of your shoulders, taking too much weight towards overbalance because the shoulders are forwards of your hands, and you're more than likely going to back splat. You want to feel that the energy goes up this way, not straight up. And that's why I'd highly recommend that you do it from your balance position, not from your feet on the floor. So I wouldn't do this and then lift your feet up like so, because momentum is going to take you up and it's going to be harder to control the movement. If you're balanced the whole time and you can pause at any point, that shows you you're in the sweet spot. So if I'm here, I'm balanced. I'm here, I'm balanced. There, 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 there. I can make little adjustments as I go, and I can come back to that tuck. Now the same with the bent arm planche. Now with the bent arm planche, it's going to be a little bit harder. We can make it easier by bringing the arms into our side and have a little bit of a rest or a shelf to lean against in that position. To do that, we're going to have to turn the hands out even more, so more external rotation. Because internal rotation takes the elbows out, external rotation of the hands brings the elbows in, creates that shelf. So same thing, find your balance position in the tucking position first, and then look, I'm opening out. Now when I'm opening out, notice that it's not just the legs, because that's going to make the lever arm too long this way and I'll fall down. It's the head, the shoulders, and the legs at the same time, so they counterbalance each other. Same thing, see if you can pause at any point as you're opening out. That shows again that you're in that sweet spot. This one's much harder than the shoulder stand from a strength point of view, but you should be able to get out further there and come back in. You might not be able to get all the way out like I just did. So again, we're going to have a shoulder stand position opened out that's suitable to you, so your level. We're going to have the same for the bent arm planche, a opened out position, again, that you can hold, and then we'll just move between them. Again, I'd start with the shoulder stand to the bent arm planche, because going down the eccentric is much easier than the going back up. So we have shoulder stand position there, arms into the side, and then I'm just going to lower down, find the bent arm planche position, and then if I can, I just reverse that back to that position. And if we look at the full 90-degree handstand push-up movement, you see you come down on that eccentric handstand push-up all the way down till the head gets close to the floor. Or if you're raised up, you'll just get to the point where your upper arm meets your torso. And then you start that transition from the shoulder stand through to the bent arm planche. And then ideally, you'll be able to reverse back up to the shoulder stand position and all the way up to the handstand. Now you'll notice it changes quite a bit depending on whether you're doing the floor variation, the raised hand variation, or on the edge of the box or something like that. So you are going to have to play around it, but just work towards your strengths at the moment. Get a variation that works for you, even if it's a tucky position, and then you can work to the other variations from that base. But for today's variation, we're now ready to add the handstand component in. So we're going to go into a handstand and we're going to lower down to our shoulder stand. Then we know where to go next. We're going to go from that shoulder stand to the bent arm planche, and then just see if we can get back to the shoulder stand. Again, tuck the body if you need to. If you don't have the freestanding balance, you could use a wall or something, but remember that you need the clearance for the head and shoulders and for the feet at the bottom. So that might restrict you in terms of opening the body out. But come down, ideally controlled, to your shoulder stand there. Then look, turn the hands a little bit, come to my bent arm planche, then back to my shoulder stand there. Show control, come back out. So for the wall variation, you'd have to do something like this. Have a bit of clearance there for the head and shoulders. Use the wall as much as you need for the handstand. As you come down, then I'm coming through to shoulder stand, then bent arm planche, back to the shoulder stand there, like so. Okay, the next piece of the puzzle is the challenging one from a strength point of view. We're going to push up from the shoulder stand to handstand. Now, if you don't have this yet, you can use a little bit of momentum as you come through, but I just keep working the real slow eccentrics, keep working your standard handstand push-ups. You probably want to be around 5 repetitions with your standard handstand push-ups, ideally, again, freestanding, before you start spending loads of time on this variation, because you really need that strong foundation, especially if you want to go to all those other different variations and do the floor version. But by itself, we're going to be looking at being in this position and then pushing up to handstand. Show control, come back out. And notice I can do that quite comfortably. So then when I add it onto the other part of the 90-degree, I've got enough gas to muscle it out if needed. But if you have it, then just try and integrate it into that first movement. So from the bent arm planche through to the shoulder stand, and then the shoulder stand up to handstand. So it'll look like this through to shoulder stand, and then push it out there. And then if I get up, you can probably get down with some sort of control. And then if you can get the timing right, you can come from the handstand all the way down and back up again, which is seen as the full 90-degree handstand push-up. It is slightly easier having the hands elevated compared to the floor version, but it would look like this. Ideally one movement. So coming down 90 degrees, back up, and then push out back to your handstand. That was a bit messy. I'm a bit limited by the ceiling, and I was holding a conversation, so let me off, but you get the idea. It's a really cool way of attacking it. You can work some of those easier progressions, and that shoulder stand, bent arm planche, those transitions are really powerful for that handstand balance, those standard handstand push-ups, and generally just calisthenics skills. Now I've got my handstand push-up course that takes you from the pike push-up to the deficit handstand push-up. I'm currently refilming the content for the 90-degree handstand push-up variations and programs. They're going to be added very soon. And the cool thing is, if you purchase that course, you have lifetime membership to it. So you'll just get all those updates. So if you are working through the handstand push-up progressions, know that the 90-degree handstand push-ups will be there ready for you when you're ready to do those levels. Today, let's go through this fun movement where we put the arms into the side, elbow lever type position, arch up, See if you can go into a hollow or extension at the top and then come back down to that start position. Now we can break this apart and make it suitable for lots of different levels. Let's go through the progressions. So to make this as easy as possible, we need to get that rolling technique or that lean in towards overbalance as we push up. So if you've got a little bit more extension in the body, if you can go into like a back bend, then you're going to find it's a little bit easier to go over. However, if you're very bendy, you might start to collapse down with the feet. But that's going to be very individual. But let's go through the drills, through the progressions that I would use if I was teaching someone how to do this. So let's externally rotate the hands, get the elbows right into the hips, so like this. And then we just need to get comfortable with taking the head and shoulders down, hips up, like so. Now notice I've got really good contact between my torso and my upper arm, and that's because I'm externally rotating the hand. And just play with that seesaw mechanism. So we're taking the head and shoulders down, feet up and back again. So you don't really need any balance or anything for this. And I am using the nose or my forehead a little bit as like a wheelie bar. So I'm just touching down nicely to stop myself going a little bit too far up and over. Then I'm going to do the same thing, but do it a little bit slower and start to open the legs out. Now you'll start to notice now that you're going to lose a little bit of control because things are going to happen faster. With the hands turned all the way out, you can't really use your fingers. You're not going to handstand like this. We want to be handstanding somewhere in between our standard handstand position and our fingers out position. So for most people, it's going to be around here with the hands a little bit wider, but not so wide, so we lose that contact with the upper arm and torso. So just have a little play around with how much extension you can do and then how high you can get in that position with different hand positions. Now notice this technique is very similar to crow up to handstand. So they've got that rolling technique is just flatter and closer to the floor, and it's a little bit harder because you're a little bit more confined, and lever arms are going to be longer, out to the side, out to the front, so a bit more planchy or 90-degree handstand push-up-y. So for most people this will be harder than crow to handstand. And then once we've found that position where I can go out and I can go up to there, you'll notice that you'll feel like your hips are going forwards and maybe your head and shoulders or your nose and face are going to get in the way. Now, when that starts to happen, the only way you're going to go into handstand is start to go up at the same time. So there's quite a bit of a strength demand now for the up movement. Now, you can do the down. You could do the handstand down to this position, which is going to look very much like your standard 90-degree handstand push-up. However, we're going to be coming in a lot more with the arms, like so, into that position. So that's one option if you're not quite strong enough to push out yet. Now, if you aren't strong enough to push out, I highly recommend you work in your handstand push-up variations and your crow to handstand. I have that handstand push-up course, pike push-up to a deficit freestanding handstand push-up. I'm actually just adding the 90-degree to that as well. So you'll have programs there from the beginner all the way through to advanced. So if you're interested in that one, links are down in the description. So let's now focus in on the push-up, but also allowing the feet to come over as much as possible. So I'm going to try and do a slow one now, and it should highlight the idea. So here, up, and then here I can get stuck. But if I continue with my feet over the top, see how it nearly rolls me or makes me fall into the handstand. Now we need to be careful we don't go too far, but most of you to start with are going to get stuck because you're pushing this way with the body. You need to be comfortable with going over. One way to get comfortable is to do it against the wall. And it's actually quite good using the wall in this way because you can use it as a bit of a target. So we need to be quite far away from the wall for the start position because our head does come forwards. So here, legs up, and then I'm going to come over, but try and touch the wall like that. And then I can walk out to the handstand like so. But learning to fall into it is a good way of doing it. And then as you get closer to it, you can do the wall variation. You can start to play with speed. So both going into it like that and then going up. No, that didn't work. See, I pushed up this way a little bit too much. So let's try that again. So there, then up and over. That was a little bit better, but I'm still not using speed as much as I could, especially if you're more flexible than I am into extension because you can go quicker up and over. I need to go up quite a bit to allow my head and shoulders to get through because I can't arch as much. So we can attack it in many different ways depending on your flexibility, your strength, your balance. Play around with this bottom position. Get comfortable down here in different positions making sure you're using the arms a lot. If you do want to work towards 90-degree handstand push-ups, you can start to make that less and less in terms of the contact, move the arms out a little bit. But knowing how to use that lever, rocking around, the seesaw, the shoulders down, the hips and the feet up, is so powerful for lots of the calisthenics movements, especially if you want to make them easier. Play with going to like scorpion or a hollow position out of this. So when I get to the top, so here, going up. Now when I get there, notice I'm turning my hands to get into the position, but now I can push the boundaries of the extension I have and then come back down, turn the hands again to catch, and I'm back into that position. So that's going to depend on your control in the handstand, but also how much extension control you have going towards a hollow, scorpion, banana back, whatever you want to call that. But again, gives you lots of options and can be a really cool standalone trick. Also remember, you can train the down only, so handstand down, which I'm a huge fan of. Having good eccentrics with any of the movements you're working on, even if it's press handstand, which is completely different to what we're doing today because we're not bending the arms. However, the movement's the same. Getting really controlled on the down is going to help you for the up. So all the calisthenics skills you can break apart in the same way. Train the bottom, train the top, train the transition, the top to the bottom, so the eccentric, the down, do the concentric, the bottom up only, do the down, then the up, do partial range. Basically hitting it from lots of different variations. Make sure your balance is good, your strength is good, and your mobility is good. But if you have weak areas, pinch from your strong areas. So if you're stronger, use strength to help you while you're working on your balance and flexibility. If you are interested in my courses or my coaching, check out the links down in the description. If I'm here, can I push up? I can, but that's not ideal. So that hand position is actually making that a bit more taxing for me than it would be normally. Okay, today we're going to take you through some handstand push-up progressions. We're going to go from real basic stuff, beginner level, all the way through to advanced, like deficit, maybe some 90-degree handstand push-up stuff if we've got time. Now, if we look where I am, see we've got this type of setup. So we've got steps, we've got grass, and then over there, we've also got some steps. But the cool thing is the grass. So if you are working towards deficit handstand push-ups, your handstand balance isn't fantastic, having something like this works really, really well. The only downside of here is that there's nowhere really in terms of using a wall. You could use the trees. So if your balance isn't fantastic, you could definitely kick up to some of those bigger trees like over there. But let's start off with a little bit of a warm-up. You can follow along with this, but I'm going to skip ahead quite fast in terms of the progressions. Okay, because we're going to work handstand push-ups, we need to work up some bent arm strength, but we also need to work on the handstand. So I'm just going to jump up and do a little bit of balance work. Now notice with the balance work here is I'm warming it up by going up and down a little bit, using that suspension in the elbows. And also look at my legs. See, they're apart. I'm not overly worried about positioning at the moment in terms of making it super clean and straight. It's all around warming up the shoulders, the scapula, and just being happy to hang out in this position. This is going to give me a lot of room for error and allow me to stack on drills very easily. So that feels okay. Next, just going to get a load of blood in the arms from a bent arm strength point of view. So keeping the elbows nice and close to the body, keeping a straightish line from the toes to the shoulders. So basically just not arching the back. You could round through there as well, get into a bit of protraction, just so it gets me ready for the pike push-ups. And let's do that now. Let's turn the hat around, open the shoulders, so here, and then bring in the shoulders forwards, rounding the upper back a little bit, elbows more or less on top of the hands, head kisses, and then come back again. Don't overly worry about elbow position in terms of being directly on top of the hands. You've got to remember that when we're here in a start of a pike push-up position, we've got a lot of weight in our feet still, so the elbows will be back a little bit. It's a bit more critical in terms of elbow position when we're in the full handstand. But just making sure that the elbows stay inwards and don't flare out. So what we don't want is this type of thing with a pike push-up. We need to make sure that we're feeling strong and our elbows are staying in. So we're externally rotating and turning those hands out a little bit really helps with that. Now, if you watched much of my content before, you'll know I love the crow froggy position. So that's what we're going to work on now. So externally rotate. Knees are more on the outside of the elbows. So like so. And then I'm just going to play with coming down a little bit and coming back. So looking at that seesaw. Head and shoulders come down, hips come up. What you don't want to do is have this type of movement. So the head and shoulders are coming down, or have a very stacked position that you can't move. We want to think about the seesaw. So when the head and shoulder come down, the hips come up, and that makes it much easier to get up to things like handstand. So if you're not already, work on that froggy crow position, whatever your level. If you're newer to it, just keep tippy toes on the floor. Play with this. And then over time, you can increase the range of motion and decrease the weight in the toes. Next, let's walk over to the grass area over here where we've got the drop off the steps. So we can do some eccentric movements. So eccentric, coming down as deep as we can towards a deficit. So warming up like a shoulder stand position. Again, like the froggy crow position, if you're not working it, you need to be. The shoulder stand position or bottom of the deficit handstand push-up is so important for the handstand push-ups and other movements. Muscle ups, press handstand is all going to be helped by L-sit to shoulder stand type movements. So we can use this. I'm going to externally rotate the hands and I'm going to bring my upper arms into my torso for the shoulder stand position. So here I'm going to start in a tuck position. I'm just going to take the head below the hands off the edge there and see if I can lift the knees up a little bit and come back down again. So a lot of this is about confidence, and the position we want to be aiming for is an angle like this. So shoulders and hips and feet in a straight line, but the angle is back. So look at the foot position, head and shoulders there. What we don't want to be is stacked upright because we're going to go over. Okay, and then if that feels okay and you're a bit more confident in the movement, what I would do is come up onto your toes. So like the pike push-up, we're going to come down to the shoulder stand position, arms into your side to there. See if you can extend the legs and then just come back and push back up. So you could do repetitions of a deficit pike push-up. I just put a piece of glass in my mouth. Or you could just do those slow lower to the shoulder stand. Both are very good. You could do a combination actually. That would be cool. Then we can use the wall again, but this time in a different way. We're going to do a feet elevated pike push-up. So externally rotate the hands, open the shoulders, head comes down, creates the triangle, and then I push back. So I actually find this quite easy because it takes away any mobility and just stacks me really nicely to just focus on the strength work. Okay, eccentric handstand push-up time. So this is where you could do it with your feet against the tree. I'll show that in a second actually. But I'm going to go freestanding to start with because this is the ideal. And also I'm going to use the wall but in a different way. So I'm going to have my feet on a deficit and I'm going to jump up. I'm a big fan of learning to jump up to an elevated surface from a deficit like this. And if you want to learn it, it's a great way to do it when there's grass here. If I'd done it where the wall was like this, so say it was this drop off on both sides of the wall, it's a bit more scary to jump up to it. But here I can practice the jump. It allows me to stack hands, shoulders, hips when I jump. So I'm going to jump up like this and come back down again. So I'm just going to build confidence there, trying to get the body to go up. But if I do go over, I'm not falling off the edge of the wall. I've got the comfort of the grass there. So this works really well. So ideally, jumping up to here, if you get up comfortably, then I'm going to take head and shoulders forwards, feet backwards, elbows in, all the way down to head touches, and then exit back out. Don't have the balance yet, use the tree, kicking up. It's not such the best thing to put your hands on here, but open shoulder position there, shoulders forwards, elbows in, pointed toes, forehead touch. If you can, walk back up the wall. When you walk back up, make sure you don't go to this position. Go back to this position, slowly lowering down, forehead touch, walking back up if you have it. Now, if you have that and you have a freestanding hold, you can do the full repetition. So for the full repetition, let's go back over to where we started, making sure we stay in the shade. Got this new tattoo as well. I'm actually gonna do my whole arm, and it's work in progress. So if you're wondering so I've had this like 20 plus years, this Japanese A. I added the sun in Bali, wasn't totally happy with how big and open it was, with the intention to go all the way down to here and fill it with Japanese waves, probably gonna go koi and a dragon at the top, we'll see. Okay, so if we have the full movement, we can go straight into it. So ideally, handstand straight line, head and shoulders forwards, elbows in, all the way down till forehead touches, and then the same back to that start position. If you don't quite have it yet, I'm a big fan of using the crow froggy position up to handstand, then doing the handstand push-up attempt. Because the crow froggy position teaches you the overbalance, the rolling up, that's going to help you with the concentric. So that there, and then eccentric, trying to keep it as clean as possible. Then on the way back up, we might need to use a little bit of rolling over, like so. Now, if we have that, we're comfortable with that, and we're comfortable to handstand on the elevated surface, we can do our eccentric deficit handstand push-up. Very, very powerful movement. It can be done in stages, so we can play with those shoulder stand entries like we were doing a second ago. But you can also progress that to stepping into shoulder stand. So like this type of thing. Once that feels okay and you have the handstand on the elevated surface, just kick straight to handstand. Show control, elbows in, all the way down to your full shoulder stand position. Then we need to start playing with the going up. Now you could play with a little bit of a crow froggy movement like we've done over there a second ago. So we would play with that, taking the head down a little bit, down a little bit further, like so. And then you could do partial range. Now partial range is suitable for all of the movements. You could do partial range, chest to wall, back to wall, pike push-ups, deficit handstand push-ups, floor handstand push-ups. You could either go to a target or you could just play with the movement a little bit and see what you can get back up with. And then once you're ready, you can just have a go at the full movement. So here, all the way down to your shoulder stand position, chest or collarbone to touch, and then push back out like so. Now that really helps if you're very balanced through the full range of motion, and that's what the eccentric allows you to do. Spend lots of time through the movement. Trying to spend lots of time in the movement on the concentric when you're pushing as hard as possible can be tough. So I'd highly recommend loads and loads of eccentrics, enter in that shoulder stand position and just get really comfortable with it. And then in some ways, if you're really strong, you can even play with doing concentric up only and have them completely separate. So the frog or crow up to handstand would be the concentric only. You're only going up, exactly the same as if I go into shoulder stand first here, pause, show control, and then push out. Actually, let's move the camera to somewhere else. Mixing it up, just showing you can train on lots of different surfaces. Let's go with this one here. Now, obviously I'm very confident in my handstand, so I'm happy to handstand elevated over concrete when there's a step and stuff here as well, where if you're not so confident, make sure you've got grass around you. Now this isn't ideal actually. I'd probably have my hands a little bit wider than this. It's quite a narrow area. So this will be interesting to see if I can get out of this. So I'm actually going to put my fingers over the edge to give me a little bit more width. So normally wider makes you feel stronger. But let's just see if I'm here. Can I push up? I can, but that's not ideal. So that hand position is actually making that a bit more taxing for me than it would be normally. So let me show you that from the front so you can see what I mean. And these are the things you need to look at when you are training outside your normal environment, or not a fixed gym environment where you have nice wooden boxes and things like that. So that, let's just show you from my hand position. I would like my hands like here, so I'm having to come in closer, which is a good skill to learn, especially if you're going to like press up or handstand push up on canes or something like that. It's a fixed width, but it will make things harder normally. Okay, let me just show you now how we can train 90-degree handstand push-ups in a slightly easier way using a wall like this. So the cool thing with this is that we can go on either side. Again, we've got the grass to make us happy. But because my feet are low on this side and my head and shoulders are high, so here, but I have the deficit, I can dip my head and shoulders down and pull my hips and feet up in the air. So it's like an extended version of the crow up to handstand or the frog to handstand. So using that seesaw, head and shoulders come down, hips and legs come up. So if I come like this, then I'm going to lead forward, elbows into the side, feet come up, hips up and over. I can then push out. Didn't use quite enough momentum there. And if I need to, and I go over, I've got the grass there. This park is really busy, so I keep looking over. There's loads of people riding past on bikes and stuff. So you get the idea though. So it's like a big seesaw. Head and shoulders coming forwards, pulls the hips and feet up. And then to make that harder, I can either just go slower. I actually stopped a bit on that one, I don't know if you noticed. And or I can reduce that height. So if I reduce the height, I can't sweep the head and shoulders down so much, sweep the hips and the legs over so much. And also I'm doing the concentric up. So I could do the down and back up again. Okay, so the full movement starting from the top, but on the elevated surface, so slightly easier, is going to come down, elbows in, feet down towards the floor, and then we come back up, and then we push. I'm stuck. So that didn't work as well as I thought, but I'm going to keep that in there. I want you to see that. So instead of me taking another one, notice how strong and balanced I am in the area I got stuck there. Super important that you learn how to take the feet and the hips over, rally banana, and if I can get into a certain position, I can basically hold there for a long time, compose myself, work out what's wrong, and then push out. And that's because I've done thousands of repetitions at different handstand variations and presses, so I know where the sweet spot is and my balance is really good. If your balance is not very good, you're going to be very restricted in terms of what you can and can't use, so your room for error is very small. And then we can just keep working on that one until you get to be able to do it on the floor. And then what you'll find is that the floor version is actually way harder because I can't take my head and shoulders lower than my hands to get that seesaw mechanism to come back up. I can't take the feet lower. But watch what I do here. I do make it a little bit easier by rocking off the elbows a touch and then extending up. Well, hopefully, let's see if it works. Hopefully it'll be better than that attempt I just done there. I won't get stuck. So here, down, rock, up, back, and push. So again, not the cleanest, obviously I'm talking, but that's the full movement on the floor. Could be cleaner, could be tidier, but that'll do for today. Now there's so much information to take in there. I thought it was really useful for you guys to see how you can train outdoors, how it's an advantage and in some ways a disadvantage, but somewhere like this you have so many options and it's good fun. If you need help with your handstand push-up, I have my full online course. Links are down in the description, or you can take a picture of this QR code. Let me know if you have any questions or requests for future videos. I'll speak to you guys in the next one.